Hey everybody, good afternoon. It is the 16th of January. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the United States, so it's a bank holiday. Futures market is currently closed. Bitcoin, of course, is always running as it is 24/7. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to take a look strictly at Bitcoin. I'm going to take a look at several different things. I'm going to take a look at open interest from a longs and shorts perspective on a lot of the major exchanges, including Binance and Bybit and all of those. I'm going to take a look at some key indicators and what they could be saying. And I just want to talk a little bit about the potential that a bottom might be in. Note, I said a bottom, not the bottom, but nonetheless, I do think we're in for some continued volatility. Before I get into all this, as you all know, this is not financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor. You're responsible for your own trades, managing your own risk, doing your own research, and as always, this is just my opinion on the market. So let's go ahead and move on into the chart, shall we? All right, so I've actually rewound just a little bit because some interesting things have happened, right? This entire channel here, we talked about this for quite some time at length. What seems like just a couple weeks ago, right? So this is going back into the end of November and the beginning of December. We had a very, very nice channel. And at the time, I was talking about this particular channel and, we were about right here. And I said, there's a pretty good chance what we're going to end up doing is we're going to kind of like bounce up. I didn't expect it to go up the way that it did, but we're probably going to break down out of this. And, that's exactly what happened. Of course, that's all history. It's easy for me to say I said that was going to happen, and that's what happened. But nonetheless, we had a nice channel here. We talk a lot about things like overlap, where you've got a high here and a low here, and it overlaps. And, that same thing happens over and over and again. And what that's supposed to do is to give you some kind of an alert that, hey, this is corrective, which means it's probably going to be movement, sort of like a continuation to the downside. But then what ended up happening? Well, we took our fib tool. We had our dominant pivot low here. We had our dominant pivot high right there. And so we were talking about this, this 618 pullback. And, whether you look at it on log scale or arithmetic scale, let's just take a real quick look here. Put that on log scale. It puts it right down there where we had. And we put it at, just sort of like a nice even number right there at about 16,500. And again, we found lots of support there for quite some time. We found some support. And then what ended up happening was, and I'm going to try and move this over this way before things went haywire. We talked about the fact that we had this 618 down here, but we also had this one up here. And at the time, we had this dominant pivot high here. We had this dominant pivot low right here. And I said, here's our next 618. We're approaching that. We're approaching that 618. Okay, so this channel, again, we've discussed this. We talked about the liquidity pool and all of that stuff. But what mattered the most, and that's one of the reasons why I kept this chart the way that it was. Echo, glad you're here. Glad you're here, Echo. The most important thing was what was going to happen when one of these 618s broke. And what I said at the time was, when it breaks, it's going to be dramatic. It's going to be a big, big move. Well, of course, what ended up happening was we pushed up into that and we just kind of blasted out. But the real interesting thing is that we actually went right back into the same channel that we were at. So that, my friends, is really, really interesting. So obviously, we're not going to break down from here. My upside target on a breakout was actually going to be all the way up here at about 24,000. That was going to be my ultimate, target for a breakout. Now, obviously, things look very, very different from what I outlined here. One of the things that I said at the time was we need to get back into this liquidity pool, find some consolidation in here, and break through. Well, what ended up happening is this came back here, this came right here, well, and then it just kind of blew straight up and out. We had a little bit of a pullback there, and then, of course, we found another move up. We found a move down here, but now what's going to happen? Are we actually going to push up and break through? I want to talk about that. All right, so first off, from a long-term perspective, and I maintain this, I've been discussing this ever since all the way down here at 16,000. When we hit 16,000, I was alerting people like, hey, I'm buying, and I'm buying for the long haul down here. This 16,000, this is a level that I've been watching for a long time, and I'm going to layer bids down from 16,000 all the way down to like 12,000. In $1,000 increments, I'm going to be buying. Well, 16, it's really all that I got. I got a good bite there. And you had 1, 2, 3, actually you had 4 opportunities to get in at 16,000. In all these different areas, you had opportunities to be a buyer at 16. Well, here's the problem. So now that we've moved up from 16,000, now that we've moved up 33%, Bitcoin has increased in value by 33%. Now that that's happened, now everybody's like, I'm going to buy a pullback. I'm going to buy a pullback because obviously this is really strong. So one of 2 things is going to happen. All right. The first thing that's going to happen is all of the people that have been placing their bids, right? All the people that have been placing their bids down here in this zone, right? So we've got, I'm just going to go ahead and use this arrow here. All the people that are placing their bids in this zone, one of 2 things is going to happen to them. One, they're going to either not get their fill, right? So we could pull back a little bit before we continue up higher, right? By the way, I think this is probably the more likely scenario. The other scenario is that this thing is going to go a little bit lower, retrace. We're going to get some bids here, but then this is going to fall down deep. Okay? So all the people that are going to be dip buyers, they're just going to be creating liquidity for people that are selling, because you have to understand how markup phases work. And what we experienced, we had 2 phases, right? We had this phase right here. That was a markdown phase. Okay, so obviously there was some news behind it, whatever the reason may be. It was a markdown phase. You had sellers that were pushing the price lower, and at the time what they were doing is they were actually accumulating down here, right? We talked about the liquidity zone and all of that. Obviously we were in a larger one down here. We had people that were accumulating, and I'm sure if you go back and take a look at the volume, you'll probably see that there was probably a lot more accumulation going on than what people were expecting. But then what happened? Well, we had a markup phase. Okay? So more than likely, it's the same people that caused this markdown that created this markup, right? They mark it down, they accumulate what they're ready to accumulate, and then they mark it back up. And that's only to create liquidity. And if they're truly done, right, if they're truly done on the markup, which it doesn't really look like it is, but if they are, well, then they're going to just blast it straight down lower. And chances of that happening are probably smaller than you would expect. I actually think that what's going to happen, we probably are going to get a little bit of a pullback here. I don't think we're going to get the bids all the way down here that maybe a lot of people are expecting. And I'm going to kind of explain why here in just a second. So first off, let's just take a real quick look here while we're talking. Let's just take a real quick look at what is the long-short ratio over the last 24 hours. Okay, so is the market really in a phase where there are, 90% longs and 50% shorts? No, that is not the case. Do not look at Bitfinex's long-short ratio, because the amount of money that is sitting in BitMax or Bitfinex, honestly, it is irrelevant. It is irrelevant. The money is in Binance. The money is in even Bybit, right? So these exchanges are the ones that are going to have the most amount of money in them, and that's important to realize. So yes, the market is very indecisive. Over the last 24 hours, it's almost 50-50 on the amount of longs versus shorts that have been opened in the last 24 hours. And I think that is also important to, to pay close attention to. Okay, so now when we take a look at open interests, right? Where is the money in open interest. Let's just take a look at that as well. So I'm just going to take a look at Bitcoin open interest. Where is the money? Where is the money at? Well, friends, it is not at Bitfinex. It is not at BitMEX. It is barely at Bybit. So from an open interest perspective, out of $10.7 billion in open interest on Bitcoin alone, Bybit barely crosses $1 billion. They're at $1.5 billion. BitGet $1.68 billion. Even CME is shy of $2 billion, but Binance is at almost $3 billion. They have 27.5% of all of the open interest on Bitcoin futures right now. Okay. And is it increasing or is it decreasing? Well, what it looks like here over the last 24 hours, the open interest on Binance has actually increased 4%. BitGet, Bybit, Deribit, those are all up about 5%. So open interest is increasing. And as we have seen, in the last 24 hours, right, we have seen, in this particular case, a 3.77% increase in open interest, of which, by the way, let's just put this back in place, it's almost 50-50. So the market is very indecisive right now. But I want to talk about two things. One of them I'm going to explain, and one of them I'm not. And I'm purposely not going to explain one in particular, but I do want to talk about the hash ribbons. Okay, so the hash ribbons here, taking a look at this, on a weekly time frame, has been very accurate in predicting, good, nice, solid buy signals on Bitcoin. Back in the very beginning, this was back at 2015, right? Let's just talk about what happened here. From price range perspective, from when we got these buy signals, and this buy signal here and this buy signal here were roughly the same. I'm going to put that there. Where did it peak out, right? So we had one right here that was up 104%. We had one right here that went up 222%. So that was a good move, right? We had a good pullback. How much of a pullback did we actually get? Let's just take a look. From the top to the bottom, the market pulled back 40%. I mean, that's pretty significant, right? Now let's move forward because we had another buy right here. This was in 2016. Well, we know what happened in 2016. From this point right here where we got the buy to basically the top that we had, that was another 3,100%. That was also, I'd say that's pretty significant, right? And then we had a good pullback. We had a really, really good pullback. How much of a pullback did we get? From the top here to the bottom here, market pulled back 84%, roughly. Then we had another buy signal when everybody was talking about Bitcoin and how it's more than likely going to just keep going lower. It's going to go down here and test these levels, right? Obviously, that's what's going to happen. It's going to come down. It's going to test these levels because it has to do that. Well, you know what? That is not what happened. That is not what happened. We had a really, really good run off of that. And actually, when we got the buy signal, that was a good solid low on Bitcoin. Yeah, obviously, it went a little bit lower, but it didn't violate these lows over here. And afterwards, it went up 295%. All right, then let's move forward again. So right here, we had a buy signal right here. What happened after that? So from this area right here to the top there, it went up another 44%. And then it crashed. Bitcoin crashed. Well, what ended up happening? Let's just talk about this. We had a big move down, a big move up, and everybody, again, was like, we're basically going to be going down in a corrective fashion, right? We're going to get that pullback, right? We're going to get a pullback. We have to get a pullback because that's what always happens. We always get a pullback. Well, what ended up happening? No pullback here. All right. Well, I guess I'm going to wait for the next buy signal and wait for a pullback on that. So we had this buy signal right here. Okay, great. Now I'm going to wait for the pullback. Well, did we get a pullback? You can see the chart. You can see what came next. Did not happen. We had buy here, and then it went up 36%. Then we had buy here, and then it went up, and it went up, and it went up, even through another buy signal, just by the way, another buy signal we had. And it continued to just stroll up, right? And obviously it capped out at 600% after that buy signal right there. Even if you were to take this buy signal right here, shoot, it still went up 236%. Okay, the next buy signal that we got, I'm just going to go ahead and align this right back there. The next buy signal that we got was right here. And I think everybody was kind of at the point where they're like, yeah, we're going to continue. We're going to go to new highs. And we did. But then everybody's like, yeah, we're just going to keep on going. It's not going to pull back at all. It went up another 57%. That's really great. Then, of course, it rolled over. But what's more important is right now, we have another buy signal that completed on the weekly time frame. And so now everybody's like, I'm going to wait for a pullback. So the bigger question is, this move down followed by this move up, is it going to more closely resemble this move down and this move up where we don't get a pullback? Or is it going to more closely resemble this move down and this move up? In which case we might get a pullback. That, my friends, I'm going to leave that up to you so you can make that decision on your own. What I will say as a big disclaimer here is, I bought at 16,000. I sold a little bit at 21,000. But all of the alts that I bought, and I bought alts pretty darn cheap. I'm keeping those. I'm not letting those go for the same reasons that I said it must have been last week. Right? When you have an alt that's gone down 90 to 95%, that's the time you should be buying. That's not the time you should be shorting, right? This goes back into the video that I did that you should absolutely watch, which is sellers create new highs, okay? Short squeezes and all of that. So now that we're here, we've got a lot of people that are like, yeah, we got this big move up. We've got hidden bearish divergence. My friends, I have to tell you something so that you don't get screwed. Let's just look at something here for just a moment. I'm going to throw the RSI on here because there's a lot of people that are talking about the fact that we've got some major, extreme, hidden bearish divergence. Okay? Well, first off, yeah, we've got a high here. We've got an extreme high right here. But for real divergence, right? Just take a look at this here for a moment. Again, we've got this high here. We have a higher high here. Yeah, it's significant. It's significant. But, really, this high should be lower. And also, nobody can claim any kind of divergence until there's been a pivot. You have to have a pivot before you can confirm divergence. Because this RSI, I'm not going to lie to you guys here. This RSI could continue moving up. It doesn't have to move down. It can continue moving up. And until it pivots and closes down, there is nothing. There is nothing. There is no divergence. Because divergence means there has been a pivot that has confirmed that things are not moving in tandem with each other and things are moving in an opposite fashion that they should. A good example right here is the weekly. Okay, so right here, you had a high right here, and then you had a high right there. We were continuing to make new highs. You could even see it all the way back here. So yeah, we had some significant divergence here. But shoot, who was willing to claim that we had bearish divergence when we were right up here? When it was just so strong. It was so strong. But then what ended up happening next? Well, we had this high right here and this high right here. And at the time, everybody was like, yeah, we got to go all the way up to, geez, we got to freaking go up to $100,000. This was exaggerated divergence. But you could not confirm that until this weekly candle closed. You had to wait for a pullback. And the mistake that I see a lot of people make is they see a big move up, and just because the indicator looks like it wants to be divergent, they try and catch the top, and shoot, you might be able to get some really great scalps, right? But when you have a move as strong as we had this last week, I mean, Bitcoin increased a significant amount just this last week. It went up almost 23% just last week. That's pretty significant, right? Probably one of the biggest weeks we've had in a long, long time. I'm not going to go back and try and figure it out. I just need to look at the size of that candle compared to all the others. It looks very, very strong compared to compared to all the other green candles. In fact, the matter is, what we have experienced here: strong red candles, strong selling, decent selling, very strong selling, strong selling. This is the most strength on the buying side that we have seen in weeks, months, probably over a year. And that is significant. One more thing I want to point out, it's right here on the 2-week time frame. And I alerted this to our Discord as well yesterday. Look at the blue arrows, which are the buy signals that this indicator has alerted. So the first one was right here, right? So we had a good buy signal right there. Big move up. We had another buy signal right here, and it was a big move up. The same thing happened right here, right? And it was decent move up right here, big move up. This one didn't work out, but we're getting another buy signal right now on this time frame. And again, this is not it's not updated on the BLX, but the buy signal has rolled in. So I have to look at the market right now with the fact that there are several things that are pointing to the fact that we may have created a bottom. And I do want to emphasize that this is potentially not the bottom, but it's going to be a bottom for at least a little while. Now, if we just completed, right? So for all of you Elliott Wave guys out there, I'm going to go back to I'm going to actually go back to this chart right here. And let's just take a look at this. I'm going to move to a different chart on Bitfinex, and I'm going to go to a weekly time frame here. I want to take a look at this because I think this is important. All right, so on a weekly time frame, if we just completed a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we just completed 5 waves down, leading diagonal style, which means they're all subdivided in 3 waves, right? Okay, so let's just see if that makes sense. From here, A, B, C into the 1, A, B, C into the 2, A, B, C into 3, A, B, C into 4. Is this actually going to work out? A, B, C into 5. Did Bitcoin just finish a leading diagonal? If it did, right? If it did, we have to watch the channel, right? We need to watch the channel. And I'll go ahead and pull this guy down here as well. Okay, watch the channel. If we get a breakout of this channel, which currently sits at about 22,500, we're going to be correcting the entire move from the all-time high to this low right here. And our targets, I mean, we've got a fantastic target here at the 50. But I'm going to put the 382 on here as well, because I think we do need to pay attention to all of these important levels. Likely we're going to get significant resistance here at about 27,400. There's going to be some resistance there. And it's going to be created by this guy right here. Right, so there's going to be some resistance created by that right there at the 382. Where's the 236? We haven't reached it yet, but again, probably we're going to find some resistance there as well, right? So we've got areas right here where we had some resistance after we broke down. We haven't really tested that yet. But now, what about that 50? How significant is that 50 at 32,700? Guys, I mean, honestly, the level couldn't be any more significant if it wanted to. We've got areas of support, over and over and over. We had support at that level, right? And that's basically created right here. That level of support was monstrous, and it even continued all the way over here. Some support there. Then we had resistance before we had a monster rejection. So again, if we break up and out of here, maybe a little pullback, I think it's going to move up to that 50 pretty quickly. And, you know, this could happen by March. It could happen by May. Shoot, it could take longer. But after that happens, then I do think that we are going to be in store for probably continuation to the downside. Because if this is a leading diagonal moving down, right? So if this is the case, then again, we're probably going to see move up in 3 waves, which we can already see a structure unfolding here. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? A 5-wave move up to this area would make a whole lot of sense if you ask me. Then we're going to be followed by a corrective move. A, B, C. Probably just to retest right where we're at right now. Probably not going to get the big pullback that you're expecting. And then we're going to be seeing, more than likely, another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And if it follows the way that I projected this, it's going to go all the way out until the end of July. We'll have to wait and see. But, you know, we've got too much that is telling us that Bitcoin could see a big move up. And one more thing I'm going to talk about. I'm going to cut this off at 30 minutes. Bitcoin dominance. Guys, I have been talking about this and talking about this and talking about this. I'm only going to say it so many times before we get to the point that this actually works out, and it's going to be really too late to get into Bitcoin, right? This Bitcoin dominance increased a significant amount, 3.7% last week. It's up 0.5% this week. You know, if Bitcoin does decide to move up to that $30,000 level, dominance is going to go off the charts because all right, how do I say this without sounding too condescending? Altcoins are a scam. They are there for market manipulators to take your money. That is the only reason that they exist. And again, we talked about what these pairs look like versus Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, you're going to see the values versus dollar likely go up with Bitcoin, but not as much because their Bitcoin trading pair is decreasing. You're losing alpha. If Bitcoin's going to be moving up significantly, you've got 2 options. You can leverage trade altcoins. You could be in Bitcoin spot. I mean, if you wanted to, you could leverage trade Bitcoin, but guys, use low leverage because we have seen so many liquidations, creating the fuel that caused us to have the big day that we had last Friday night. If Bitcoin dominance continues moving up, the place that I would be interested in buying alts, for some leverage trades, for an alt season, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be right here at about 50%. We're going to get that 50%, and then potentially that move down, that's going to be your alt season. That's going to be what you're really here for. For right now, all I can say is at the moment, it looks like Bitcoin dominance is going to take off more than it has. Again, it was in a really tight squeeze here. It exited last week of the orange squeeze. It's now in a red squeeze. And once this thing turns black, and especially when it turns green, that momentum is being released. So you need to be prepared for that. All right, guys. I said I would cut it off at 30 minutes. We are at 29 minutes and 14 seconds or so. So I'm going to go ahead and close things off. If you need access to our Discord, you can find all that information on BitDoctor.org. If you need access to our education, our trade ideas, our indicator, all that information is on BitDoctor.org. And of course, if this video helped you in any way, shape, or form, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, share. Gosh, we'd love to see you on the Discord. But last but not least, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good day, a good night, and a good evening. Take care, everyone.